People have been scanning the surface of a Scottish lake for centuries in search of the Loch Ness Monster. This weekend, there is a decidedly more ambitious effort underway to see if there's any truth to the legend.
I was sort of one eye on the phone, one eye on the dog. There was a strange noise. My dogs went crazy. As I looked down, there was something in the photograph.
Have you ever really stopped to think about what might be lurking in the shadowy depths of Loch Ness? For generations, people have been whispering about strange shapes gliding beneath its surface.
We were scared, really scared, because we just didn't know what it was.
Some claim to have seen a monster, others just a shadow, a ripple, a silhouette too strange to be a log or a fish.
When suddenly there was a huge splashing about sound coming from the marina. It was very alarming. Because it was so huge, it seemed to be stirring up the loch.
Whatever it was, it stirred something primal in the human imagination. Now, in the age of smartphones and instant sharing, something new has surfaced, literally. A brand new photograph, sharper and clearer than almost anything we've seen before, is making waves across the world. When you zoom in, the details are so chilling that even skeptics are pausing before they dismiss it. Could this finally be the proof humanity has been waiting for? Or is it just another chapter in a story that refuses to die? Stay with us, because to understand what makes this latest evidence so powerful, we need to travel back through time, deep into the history of the Loch and the legend that has haunted it for over a millennium.
The Loch Ness Monster, or Nessie, is without a doubt the most famous or iconic monster that has been reported around the world.
The legend and the Loch. The Loch Ness Monster's story didn't begin with blurry photos or viral videos posted to social media. It began long before the modern world even had a name for cryptids. The origins of the legend go back over 1,500 years, to a time when the land that we now know as Scotland was ruled by a mysterious people called the Picts. The Picts carved their history and beliefs into standing stones, huge slabs, covered in intricate designs, symbols, and animals. Among these carvings are strange depictions of creatures that seem to float through invisible water, their long, elegant shapes unlike anything we know today. These images are not rare. In fact, they make up almost 40% of all known Pictish stones, which tells us that these creatures, whatever they were, mattered deeply to the people who carved them. Some historians argue these figures were symbolic animals, spiritual guardians meant to protect or inspire. Others believe they were based on real sightings, records of something strange that had been seen so often it became part of the culture, passed down as stories from one generation to the next. Could these carvings be the first written clues? In a mystery that has gripped the imagination of the world ever since. Fast forward a few centuries to the 6th century AD, where we find one of the earliest written accounts of a monster in the area. Saint Columba, an Irish monk known for spreading Christianity across Scotland, was standing on the banks of the River Ness one day, not looking for monsters, but simply attending to a burial. Then, something happened that would echo through the ages. According to legend, a man was attacked while swimming. Witnesses said he was dragged under the water by what they called a water beast. Columba, fearless, raised his hand and commanded the creature to retreat. Miraculously, the beast obeyed, sinking back into the dark water. Whether this story is true, symbolic, or exaggerated, it planted a seed in the minds of the people who lived near the water. Something dangerous lived there, something powerful enough to be feared, respected, and remembered. The Loch itself, to understand why this story has endured for so long, you have to understand Loch Ness itself. Loch Ness isn't just a lake. It's a vast, ancient trench carved by glaciers thousands of years ago. It stretches over 22 miles through the Scottish Highlands and plunges nearly 800 feet deep, making it one of the largest bodies of freshwater in all of Britain. Its waters are almost pitch black, stained with peat that has washed down from the surrounding hills. You can only see a few feet below the surface, no matter how bright the day is. Beneath that dark mirror lies a hidden world of trenches, drop-offs, and twisting channels that make the loch feel endless. The loch has a personality of its own. Its surface can be calm one moment and rippling the next, as if something unseen has disturbed it. Mists roll in without warning. The wind can rise suddenly, churning the water into whitecaps that vanish as quickly as they appeared. It is the perfect setting for stories that blur the line between fact and myth. And maybe that's part of why Nessie has captured so many hearts and minds. We are wired to search for patterns, to look for meaning in the unknown. The Loch Ness Monster is more than just a creature. It is a question mark come to life. Every splash, every unexplained ripple, every fleeting shadow makes people stop and wonder, what if? Sightings through the ages. The first so-called modern sighting came in the early 1870s, long before Nessie became a household name. A man named D. Mackenzie was walking along the shore near Aldori when he saw what he thought was a log floating in the loch. But the log began to move, not drifting, but rising and cutting through the water with surprising speed, leaving behind a foamy white wake. Decades later, in 1934, Mackenzie finally wrote about his experience, describing it as smooth, dark, and fast-moving, almost like an upturned boat gliding through the water. Skeptics argue that his memory, recalled 60 years later, couldn't possibly be accurate. But the simplicity of his description, and its eerie similarity to what others would soon report, is difficult to ignore. Everything changed in July 1933, when a British couple named George and Mrs. Spicer were driving along the road that runs alongside the loch. The sun was bright, the road was empty, and then, out of nowhere, something massive crossed right in front of their car. They described a creature unlike anything they had ever seen. A dark, hulking body with a long, snake-like neck that arched high into the air. It was fast, but its movements were strangely deliberate, almost graceful. The Spicers even said it appeared to be carrying something in its mouth, possibly a small animal. Before they could react, it slid down the embankment and vanished into the loch with a splash that sent ripples racing across the surface. The story made headlines across Britain, then across the world. Loch Ness was no longer just a quiet Scottish lake. It was the epicenter of one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. The monster had a name, a face, and a growing list of witnesses. Months later, in January 1934, a young veterinary student named Arthur Grant had his own encounter. Riding his motorbike along the loch late at night, his headlamp illuminated something crossing the road just ahead. It had a long neck, a strong body, and moved with purpose. He later sketched what he saw, and the drawing resembled a plesiosaur, an ancient marine reptile thought to have gone extinct millions of years ago. From that moment, the image of Nessie as a long-necked, prehistoric-looking creature became locked in the public imagination. The Greta Finlay encounter. Then came the sighting that would haunt witnesses and researchers for decades. The Greta Finlay encounter of 1952. It was a calm, warm summer day when Greta, her son Harry, and their family arrived at Aldori Pier on the loch's eastern shore. The setting was quiet and peaceful. The only sounds were the gentle lapping of water and the distant cries of birds. Then, suddenly, a strange slapping noise echoed across the water. At first, Greta assumed it was just a fish, but the sound didn't stop. Then, only 20 yards away, the surface of the loch began to churn, and something rose out of the depths. Greta froze. Before her stood a long, straight neck, glistening in the pale sunlight. The skin was dark and slick, almost slimy. At the top was a small head, crowned with two short, rounded projections like stubs or horns. Greta described it as looking alien, unearthly. The creature didn't thrash or flee. It moved calmly, almost serenely, sending small ripples toward the pier. Greta estimated that the portion of the creature above water was at least 15 feet long, meaning the rest of its body, hidden below, could have been much larger. Greta and Harry stood rooted to the spot, too shocked even to grab the camera, that sat unused just a few feet away. After a few minutes, the creature slid silently back beneath the surface, leaving only a trembling wake. The encounter affected them both for life. Greta later admitted that the fear she felt was paralyzing, something she couldn't easily explain in words. Harry, who had loved fishing, never fished in Loch Ness again. Skeptics versus believers. Skeptics have long argued that what Greta and Harry saw that day was not a monster, but a red deer. Writers like Ronald Binns and Maurice Burton suggested that the two projections Greta saw were simply antlers, and that wet fur reflecting sunlight could have created the illusion of slick, dark skin. But there are problems with this theory. For one, bathymetric surveys of the area show that the water depth where Greta claimed the creature surfaced is around 22 feet, far too deep for a deer to be standing. If it had been swimming, its body position, head angle, and behavior would have been completely different. And then there is the creature's final movement. Deer do not sink vertically and vanish. They splash, thrash, and swim for shore. Greta described a calm, deliberate descent into the water, leaving behind only gentle ripples, a detail she repeated consistently for decades. Modern researchers like Roland Watson have taken a fresh look at the case. Using old survey maps, Google Earth, and modern forensic interview techniques, Watson has concluded that the Finleys were likely telling the truth about what they saw, and that it wasn't a deer. Greta's first testimony, given just days after the encounter, was calm, detailed, and consistent. Later interviews in the 1960s matched the original account almost word for word. And when Harry finally spoke out in 2020, nearly 70 years later, his description was unchanged. Their story, Watson argues, is too consistent, too free from exaggeration, and too psychologically unmotivated to be dismissed as a simple mistake. The new image, and now we come full circle. A new photograph, razor-sharp, impossibly clear, has captured the world's attention. In it, a dark, sleek neck rises from the water. Behind it, a series of humps breaks the surface, perfectly aligned, just as countless witnesses have described for over a century. For believers, this is historic corroboration, the missing link between decades of testimony and hard visual evidence. For skeptics, it's just another anomaly, something that could be explained by waves, light, or coincidence. Pixel-level forensic analysis has shown no obvious signs of tampering. The object is big, much bigger than any known fish in the loch, and its wake suggests controlled movement rather than floating debris. Still, definitive proof remains out of reach. Modern sonar scans have detected massive moving shapes deep beneath the loch, but the water remains too dark to reveal what they really are. And so, the mystery remains. The legend of Loch Ness isn't just a story. It's a mirror reflecting our fascination with the unknown. Whether Nessie is a real creature, a trick of the light, or something in between, the loch continues to whisper its secrets, daring us to keep searching. And if this latest photograph is any indication, the search is far from over.